I am the disabled guy with the disabled life. That podcast is going to be about disabled issues and other things that interest me and others from the disabled community. I did this so that people understand what we go through in life and what we do, because a lot of what we do, it is interesting. I'm also going to talk a little bit about ADA and things of that nature. It's something that's very important to me and something that I learned a lot about when I did an episode. I'm going to talk more about it. Okay. This podcast, it's going to come out at 10 p.m. Saturday and Wednesday. So that's when that's when I think most people listen. Most people listen at night or have the episodes there for during the daytime. So let me stop this. Stop. Hi Elizabeth, how you doing?
Hi there, Leonard. It's so good to chat to you.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest on your show.
Right. So how you been doing?
I'm all good. Thank you. Should I just introduce myself so your listeners know who it is that you're chatting to and tell you a little bit about myself?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, great. Thanks so much. So I'm Lois Strothan. I am a disability coach, an author, a podcaster, and a professional speaker. And I live in Cape Town in South Africa. And I am blind, having become so at the age of 21 when I was studying at university. I'm blind as a result of diabetes. And yeah, I mean, my blindness is just a thing. It's not a big thing in my life. It's just part of who I am. And it means that I am able to do work that I love, empowering other people with disabilities.
How do you do that work? What do you do?
There's a whole lot of different ways that I do. My main work, working directly with people with disabilities, is as a coach, where I help them to think through problems that they're encountering or goals that they want to achieve that just they're not getting to, and I help them to explore what's possible for them, what tools and knowledge they might still need to get, and help them to just achieve those dreams that they're wanting to achieve. And it's a really great, it's such an honor to be able to work with people and to help them in that way. But also then I work building awareness and knowledge amongst the non-disabled community, teaching people more about what we are able to do, the tools and techniques that we use, and yeah, just really trying to explain that we are just ordinary people who do things in a different way. So that's mostly kind of what I do with my various platforms.
Okay, one thing that I know from knowing a couple of blind people, some people see light, others don't. Do you see light?
I don't have any usable vision, and I don't see light specifically. What I do see, you know that sense of kind of pins and needles in your hands or your arms, where you've got that kind of prickling feeling. So I get a visual equivalent of that.
Oh my God.
In my eyes, where I see bright spots of really beautiful colors, gold and a rich blue and green and yellow and white, but the amount of light in the room doesn't actually impact me at all. So yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I am completely blind.
So one of the things that I started when I started why did you start your podcast? Let me say it that way.
Why did I start it?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, I've started listening to podcasts back in 2016.
Right.
And then a few months later, I became a guest on a podcast, and the person who interviewed
Turn on camera. V
that
button.
show said, "Have you ever thought about starting a podcast?"
Yes.
And I thought about it, but I just never seemed to get round to it. And then I met a woman who runs an organization called Accessible South Africa. And Deirdre mentioned to me that she was wanting to start a podcast. And I went, "Oh, I'll help you." And so initially, the first couple of years that I worked, I was hosting a show called A Different Way of Traveling, which was under the brand of Accessible South Africa. And then about 2 years ago, 2.5 maybe, I shifted it and brought the podcast more generally, because originally I was talking about accessible travel and exploring the journeys of people who go traveling with disabilities and how they do it and some of the experiences they have. And in shifting the podcast to my own brand, I started looking more broadly, more generally at disability as a topic. So how we are able to work in the business space, employment, education, art, culture, leisure, any activities and any topic of interest to people with disabilities. And that's what I do now. It's called A Different Way of Seeing.
Right. As you hear, as my intro says, I talk about all kinds of disability topics. You know, it's not just. I used to talk more about my life. I broadened that up a little bit. So let me ask you a question. How do you actually get around when it comes to South Africa? Because here in the United States we have paratransit.
We do have a certain amount of paratransport here, not a lot, and it's a very under-resourced service. Also, we have a lot of infrastructure problems where our public transport system is not overly accessible. So for me being blind, it's okay. In fact, we've recently introduced our first train service in Cape Town that has voice notifications on the actual the train itself, where before we would just have to know which station we were going to get off at. But for wheelchair users and people with mobility impairments, often there is little accessibility to use the trains, the buses, and the public transport. There are some bus routes and some bus services that are more accessible, but mostly South Africa is a very motor vehicle, a car-dominated society, and I find for me getting around, most often I am either getting a ride with family or friends, or I am able to use a ride-share service as well.
Because that's not here in the U.S. Just so you know, here in the U.S., rideshare is not accessible to us. It would be to me, but the problem that it has is that it is private vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them private vehicles do not want to put a wheelchair in their trunk, which is absurd.
We have less challenges like that. I think like in much of the rest of the world where there are rideshare services, there's often more problems with service animals. I know of a lot of people who are guide dog users or service dog users who the rideshare services have refused their guide dogs. They've just said, no, we won't take them. Or they arrive and see the dogs and then just drive past or something like that. But generally, I found that when it comes to wheelchair usages, wheelchair users, that they are able to use the rideshare services, and one of the rideshare services particularly has a special category of vehicles that are designed for people with special needs. So people who may be elderly and require a little bit of extra time or a little bit of extra support, or people who are blind, people who are wheelchair users. So I do, if I'm traveling with a guide dog, or my friends who are wheelchair users, they tend to try and use that specific assist service instead.
Do you have
simply because it allows more access.
Do you have a guide dog currently?
That's going to depend when this episode comes out, because I'm going to be going on training with my new guide dog at the beginning of August 2024. So if you're listening after August, I will have a guide dog, but where we currently are in July, I don't yet have a dog. My previous dog passed away in October last year.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, because that must have been an emotional moment for you, because they're part of you.
It was hard. It was very, very hard for me, because we were working incredibly well together. She unexpectedly became ill. I was expecting that she would work for another year or two. So it was a complete surprise.
Yes.
It was very, very fast.
Yeah, it wasn't a guide dog for me, but it was. I just to let you know, I had a cat that I was really close to, that we actually survived. We actually make it. It was dying. We nursed him to health, and he got close to me, and he got septic, and he died from a fight. So I can understand that.
I think it's always difficult when we form an emotional bond with an animal.
Yes.
It's always hard to lose that animal.
Yes.
So,
and when it's unexpected, you take them to the vet and they say you got to put them down. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. No. So let me ask you this: when it comes to plane travel, how do you deal with that?
Airplane travel. Look, a lot does depend on how I'm traveling. I have a sighted husband. So if we're traveling together, it really is just like anybody else taking a flight. We travel together. I don't require any specific accommodations, and it all happens smoothly and easily. If I'm traveling with a guide dog, obviously there's a little bit of administrative side, a little bit of paperwork that needs to happen, because the airplanes need to know that a guide dog is on board, and they have certain seats that they prefer that you sit in, and there's all sorts of stuff like that. And they also are very particular about making certain that it's only a certified guide dog, and not just someone who's claiming that they've got a dog that is actually not formally trained. But then if I'm traveling on my own, I make use of what here they call the meet and assist service, where they will, one of the airport employees, Airlines Company South Africa, will assist me, and they'll meet me at the plane, they'll take me to the plane, they'll really help me just to navigate around the airport, because it's not a space that I use often enough that I know the details of how to get from one place to another. And particularly if it's in an airport that I haven't been to before, I find that if I'm traveling on my own, I do need the support. No, I prefer to have the support of a sighted person to guide me when I'm traveling.
Right. No, because I as a wheelchair user, I need a even though I use a walker, I'm trying to get. I'm getting to a question here. I have to use a what they call an aisle chair. If you know what that is.
Yeah, yeah.
And that can be a pain, as you know. I've talked to you about that one. So
Yes, it can be.
So
It can be difficult.
right. So have you traveled out of South Africa?
I have. Since going blind, I've been able to travel to over 20 countries on 4 different continents. I love travel. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I am in the privileged position where I'm able to travel. And I really love exploring new cultures, new places, new peoples, new food. And, it's just such an exciting experience. And, people kind of ask me often, well, how do you travel? Why do you travel? Because you can't see anything. And there are so many other ways to use your other senses to learn about a place that you're in. And you can pick up all sorts of different bits of information, but often sighted people don't pick up because they're focusing on their eyesight. So it's just a different way of traveling. It's not a worse way. It's just a different way. Yeah.
Is that dogs I hear in the background?
It is. It's my pet dogs. They often come to visit me when I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah, I hear them.
So I hope they're not too noisy.
No, they're okay. I heard this noise. I'm like, what is this noise? So as I was asking you, because I've had the opportunity to travel to Costa Rica a number of times when I was a child, and now as an adult, I traveled twice. And so yeah, that's why I came with travel. Tell me a little bit about how you became a public speaker.
I sort of fell into it by accident, a bit like authoring books as well. I never really set out to do public speaking, but I got involved with an organization called Toastmasters International.
I've heard.
Which is it's a global community of people who learn the skills of speaking and leadership.
Right.
And it was really through becoming a Toastmaster and practicing speaking. And then people would listen to me speak, and then they would come and invite me to speak at their organizations and to their communities. And so it really all developed from there. And then about 10 years ago, I was working as an administration role in a marine engineering firm and landed up getting retrenched because they were restructuring the company. So I landed up without a job.
Oh no.
And when I thought about it, well, what can I do? And decided I didn't really want to go and work for a boss. So what could I do as a self-employed person to earn an income? And speaking was the easiest thing for me to start doing. And from out of my speaking has come all the work that I do in terms of my disability advocacy work, and from there the writing of my books and the podcast. So it all kind of links in together.
Yes, it does. Let me ask you, how do people how do people react when they realize that you're married? Because a lot of people say, oh, disabled people can't do this, they can't do that.
I think people very seldom comment to me about the fact that I'm married. They are far more likely to say to my husband what a great guy he is to have taken on a blind wife. And I put it down to just the whole stigmatization, the attitudinal barriers, what people believe about disability, that they don't understand that just because you have a disability doesn't make you any different as a person.
Right.
And it's an equal partnership as any marriage is. So it's not that my husband is doing me a favor by marrying me. It's, if you look at it from that perspective, we're each doing each other a favor by, you know, you're committing to share your life with someone else.
Right.
And being disabled isn't any different from any other marriage.
No.
Sure, it means that we maybe do things a little bit differently sometimes, but other than that, having a good marriage takes exactly the same amount of work as if I wasn't blind.
The reason I ask that is because there's a lot of people that say, "Oh no, we can't do this, we can't do that," you know, and that's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. I think I've over the years I've become very able to disregard what other people try to impose on me because of their belief in what I can do and what I can't.
I gotcha.
I don't have to accept that.
No.
I will only accept what I know I can do or cannot do.
Right.
And I've become really good at just ignoring other people who try to stop me from doing stuff and just going ahead and trying it anyway. I'm sure sometimes I'll find stuff that I can't do.
Right.
And that's okay as long as I've tried it for myself.
Right, you learned it and you said
I've decided it for myself. Like all of us, you know?
Right, yeah.
We all have people trying to impose what they believe onto us in terms of our disabilities.
I get it.
But yeah, that's how we respond.
I get it. I'll tell you, as a caveat here, I am a volunteer examiner for American Radio Arena League, which means we are the organization that are authorized to sign the amateur radio exams. Right? Mm-hmm. I was never limited on what to do, but the only thing that they asked me, which was logical, was, can you physically sign documents?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, I can. No problem from there. As disabled people, sometimes we have to ask weird questions, answer weird questions.
Yes. Yeah, we do sometimes.
Right, we have to answer them.
The number of times people ask me if my husband does my makeup for me, or if he types my emails for me, or if he, this part of us, I think, that gets frustrated by what we see as the stupidity of the questions we sometimes get asked. But people don't know because they're just really unaware.
Yeah.
Because they don't often get exposed to a person with a disability.
Right.
And at least they're having the courage to ask.
Right, no.
And next time, they will know.
I prefer they ask.
Yeah, for sure. I would far rather that someone actually come and ask me.
Right.
Than to just try and ignore or look away or stare or,
right, no.
But I do understand. as well.
I do get it. It's so interesting that when we travel out of the country, there's a lot more of that.
I think in any community, you'll find people who are more aware and people who are less aware. I mean, yes, people differ in different cultures, different communities.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, I think people around the world are very similar.
How do children?
Which is great.
Mhm. How do children react to you?
In lots of different ways. Again, what I love about engaging with children is they are fearless about asking questions.
Right now.
They don't have those social barriers that say, oh, you can't ask her that. She might get upset.
All right.
They just go out there and ask. But you can also see sometimes that their responses are a little unusual. Like I was speaking to a group of children once. They must have been 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the young students, one of the young learners, he really was trying to understand what my blindness meant. And he would stand at different parts of the room and say, "Can you see me now?" And eventually he walked right up to me, almost nose to nose with me, and went, "Can you see me now?" And I said to him, "No, because it's like my eyes are closed, even though they're open." And he went away and he thought about that one for a long time. And then he turned around and went, "I know why you're blind. You were staring at the sun through a telescope, and the sun jumped into the telescope and ran down the telescope and burnt your eyes." And I went, "You've been listening to your parents talking about what you should and shouldn't do with a telescope,
Right.
haven't you?" And his mom actually came and spoke to me afterwards, and she said, "I'm so sorry. I felt so embarrassed." And I was like, "No, don't apologize, because it's his need to understand. His curiosity is going to take him, and when he grows up, he's going to be doing some great things. He'll be an engineer or a teacher or a doctor, because he's got that thirst to understand.
Well,
And it's a good thing.
Well, why was she embarrassed about that? That's something normal.
Because she thought I might be upset. Because again, adults develop this kind of social phobia of upsetting someone with a disability. And they're so scared to ask questions. And hopefully in saying what I did to her, hopefully she will also learn that it's usually okay to ask questions.
Because I say
It's
this.
better.
I say this. I have had experiences where people actually ask questions to make fun of me. In Costa Rica, I've had
That's not so cool. That is not cool.
The reason I know that is because the same kid asked me the same question 3 times, 3 different days. That was. So I said,
You know, it is possible that maybe he had a cognitive condition that meant he couldn't remember.
Possibly, yeah.
So there are also so many different reasons that it could be, but yeah, kids can be really cruel.
Yeah.
Particularly to their peers, their own age group. They can be sometimes without thinking of it, not without intending it.
Right.
They can be really cruel because they think they're being funny, or they just kids can be cruel.
Yeah, kids are cruel sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I learned early in life is ask questions and let people help you when you need it.
Yeah. And that's always a tough one as well, because I get not annoyed, but it becomes more problematic for me if people assume that they know when I need help, or just do things because they think it'll be easier for them to do it.
Yeah.
When in fact, it really doesn't take any effort for them to just come up and say to me, "Hey, you look like you might need help. Is there anything you need?" And then let me decide. But even people who've known me for a long time, sometimes they'll just go, oh, it'll just be easier for me to do it. I'll just do it. It'll save you time. It'll save you effort. And I've had situations where if we've been out at a meal somewhere where there's a buffet meal,
Right.
that they'll come and present me with a plate of food. Now, without checking what I want or what I will and can and cannot eat, and that also can be problematic, because then how do you reply? How do you respond? Because they're trying to be kind and do you helpful, but it can land up causing more complications.
Let me ask you this question. That thing brought me to a question. How do you handle that when they do that and you don't know what's in there and you have diabetes, for example? How do you deal with it?
Usually I ask them to tell me what's on my plate, and then I get some pretty clear instructions of where on my plate things are. So if there's things that I don't eat, I can just ignore them. If it's a meal that I can't avoid the things that I don't eat, I'll just say, I'm really sorry, you didn't check with me, and I'm actually vegetarian, which I am. Or I can't actually eat that. Is there another option? So I try very hard not to make people feel bad about doing something to help me, but at the same time to let them know that it wasn't as helpful as they thought that it was gonna be.
Right.
But it really depends on the person. It depends on how well I know them. It depends on a whole lot of different factors of how I actually handle it each time.
And you brought me into a question that I forgot one time. How do you manage your diabetes when as a non-sighted person?
So there's a number of different ways. I am insulin dependent as a diabetic, so I do test my blood glucose levels, and there are a number of different ways that I can do that. There are ways that I can do it completely independently. The way that I'm personally using at the moment is that my husband does help me with my blood readings, but that's a choice as well. It's because we've just always done it that way, but there are technologies available that I could do that totally independently and monitor my blood readings. And then for the rest of it, it's all things that I can manage easily, like deciding what food to eat, the amount of exercise I get, that sort of thing. I can manage it all myself.
Yeah, because I had an experience. We had an exam. I was on a Zoom call with an exam group, right? I was working an exam, right? And all of a sudden, technically, we are not supposed to have a cell phone on in the room, because they could use it as a web device and cheat and whatever, right? Yeah. They could use it. So we're not allowed. Per rule, once that cell phone thing became a thing, we had a rule: no cell phone in the room, right?
Yeah.
But now
I can understand that.
But now there's a difference. Now some people have diabetes devices on their body that go to their phone.
Yes, so they need to be able to read their blood levels.
So we have to accommodate that, so they can't turn it off. Because you know what happened at the beginning of the recording? Something glitched, and what did we have to do? Go through all that. So we didn't want to do that. So what happens is, so they can't turn their phone off. So what I told my buddy is, don't make them even put it upside down, because it could cause an ADA issue, right?
Yeah.
So I said, oh no. So I said, as long as I see that is on the screen and that is unremoved, they don't touch that, I'm good with that.
Yes. So they can monitor their blood levels visually.
Yes.
Or even audio,
Right.
but they don't engage with the screen, so they are not needing to. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want them to engage with the screen because we don't know what's happening.
Yes, you can't, unless you're standing right there, you can't see what each person's doing if they've got their screen active.
No.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, as a disabled person, how do you get your dogs, your dog trained to do their tasks?
You know, the guide dogs are fully trained by the time they are introduced to the human partners.
Right.
So it's not like you can just say, hey, I would like a guide dog. Let me take my pet dog and go to a training center. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that does that, because they do need to look for dogs with particular temperaments, particular traits, particular kind of trainability, particular energy levels, and that sort of thing. So, for example, I will be going up on guide dog training in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks today, actually.
Right.
The dog is already fully trained, knows all of the basic commands, knows all the work that it usually has to do, and then I also, when I'm on training, I will get taught how to work with the dog and train it around any specific requirements that I have. So if I want the dog to learn a particular route, I can learn how to teach the dog the best way to do that. So it's kind of a combination of the dog knowing all the basics already and learning the way to train the dog over and above what they already know.
Okay, questions that I know the answer to, but my listeners may not.
Yeah.
Can somebody, if the dog is in harness, can a person just pet the dog?
You shouldn't do that, because the dog is focusing on what it's doing. It's focusing on the environment. It's focusing on what it is doing and what its human partner is doing. And if you try to engage with the dog in any way, you could land up distracting the dog, distracting the human partner, and it could land up putting them into a dangerous situation. So it's better never to just pet a dog, a guide dog. And if you do want to meet the dog, speak to the human partner and ask if it's okay. And then it's up to them to either arrange it in such a way that they are comfortable and the dog is comfortable, or if they say no, because a lot of people prefer that you don't engage with their dogs, and there's a reason for that. But if they do say no, please respect that decision.
I know. I don't have a guide dog or a service dog. I'm not going to call it a guide dog because I'm visual.
Sure.
But I know people that do, and the reason I asked you about guide dogs earlier on, and question, just so, should we call them? Should we call them seeing eye dogs or guide dogs? I know the answer to that, but
okay. So my understanding, and I may be wrong, but what I think the difference is between the two is that there are two different training schools in the USA, and one is called Guide Dogs for the Blind, and one is called Seeing Eye Dogs. And my understanding is the term Seeing Eye has become more generally used, but that it really should only be used for dogs that was specifically trained by that particular school of guide dog in the USA.
I tend to agree with you because it's, that's their name,
Yeah. But generally, the term that I know is guide dogs, I will say. Although I know some people call them seeing eye dogs. It is...
Because they're actually seeing for you and guiding you.
They're kind of doing both, in a sense.
Right.
They are navigating for me. They are seeing the best way to go. They are guiding, so I understand why both names could apply.
Right.
But for me, the term guide dog, I think, is more general. Yeah.
Let me ask you another question that I know the answer to, but again, for my listeners, what happens if you tell your dog forward and he doesn't go forward? What do you do? Because I know why.
What do I do?
Because I know why it's happening.
Yeah, well, okay, so...
First of all, why is it happening? Let's do it that way.
It could be that the dog was distracted and didn't hear you, in which case you just need to repeat the command and then they will move. But it could also be because the dog has seen some obstacle that is not safe for you to be walking. And they are trained to have a level of disobedience, so that if they're given an instruction and the instruction will put them or you in danger, that they are trained to ignore what you've said and to refuse to move. So it could well happen that, well, let me tell you a story. Maybe your listeners will enjoy this one.
Uh-huh.
I was walking with my dog, my first guide dog, I got many years ago, and we were walking a route we knew really well, and suddenly she stopped. And I thought, okay, why is she stopped? What is around here that could be an obstacle? And there was a car idling on the side of the road, but that was about 10, 15 meters away from me. So it was quite a distance away. We weren't anywhere near a step. So I told the dog, go forward. And the dog said, no. I said again, go forward. And he said, no. So I went, fine, you're just being difficult. And I took a big step forward and I fell into a hole. That was part of a construction site that we were walking past. They had dug up the curb to lay water pipes, and they had not put an effective barrier around that.
So the dog realized that.
The dog was doing absolutely the right thing. I was being the human who insisted that she was right and took that step forward. My dog jumped over the hole, turned around and went, really, that was a bad idea. Bad mom. Naughty mom. You should have listened to me. And the dog was right. So what I should have done is I should have explored with a foot and just felt in front of me to see if there was anything possibly that the dog was alerting me to. But I didn't, because I just didn't. I just neglected to do so. So I was forgetting my training. My dog was doing absolutely the right thing.
So your dog did his job, her job.
Yeah, he did. Absolutely perfectly well.
To help you, to say, don't go there, you just fall down. So what do they do what do they do when you do something like that and fall down? What do they do?
What do the dogs do?
Yeah,
That's going to depend. I don't fall often with my dogs. There is really only twice that I can think of. In both times, the dog has stayed there with me, has obviously looked a bit concerned, but thankfully has not been traumatized by what happened. Because some dogs, if they are quite sensitive, they can be so affected by the fact that you hurt yourself that they will refuse to walk past that part of the route again.
So how would you deal with that one?
If the dog simply refuses to go, I would consult, I would ask one of the guide dog trainers to come and assist, to teach the dog that it's safe and just to reinforce the right behavior.
So that can become complicated.
If the dogs, yeah, so they basically retrain the dog if they need to.
Oh.
Most of the times that will work, but if it really, really is traumatized, you might have to find a new way to get around that part of the route. I don't know. I've never heard of that happening, but, you know, what if? I don't know.
I asked you that question because that was unusual to me. I learned something.
Yeah.
When the dog says no, is no.
Some dogs do, I think.
Yeah,
but mostly because they are trained and they are trainable, that you can retrain the dog to know that it's okay to walk past that spot again.
To understand that was just an accident.
Yeah, but you know, for me, both my dogs went, oh, it happened.
Luckily, it didn't.
We'll be okay. Yeah.
Luckily, you didn't have to do all that retraining and all that.
No,
because that was that taught you don't follow my dog.
Yes, it did. It taught me to be much more aware of what my dog was doing and trust my dog.
Why it was doing that?
Yeah.
Is it better for you to be with a guide dog, or can you, or do you feel as comfortable just cane walking around?
I have personally never felt as independent with a white cane, but that's a personal thing. I know a lot of people who are incredibly skilled white cane users, and for them, they prefer the white cane. Each of us makes the decision of what we prefer.
Mm.
And also, we should, even a guide dog user should have fairly good cane skills, because what if your dog is sick? What if something, as happened with Fiji, what if something happens to your dog?
Let me ask you a quick question. Why does, because I had a friend of mine that was blind. He would walk around with his guide dog and he had a cane. Why would you carry both at the same time?
Because there are some circumstances where there is benefit to having the cane. So in the situation where my dog stopped on that route, the story I told you earlier,
right?
If I had had my cane with me, I could have used the cane to explore further in front of me than I could reach with my foot. And I might then have picked up if the hole was a little bit further in front of me. So I can kind of understand why someone might. For me, I might choose to take a collapsible cane with me in my bag, but not use it unless for some reason my dog is not remaining with me for the entire journey.
Yeah, because what he has is a collapsible cane.
Yeah.
That's all I thought that there was.
You do have what they call rigid canes, which is ones that don't collapse, which it really comes down to what people prefer. I do prefer collapsible because you can fold them up and put them away somewhere, where a rigid cane, you are gonna, if you go somewhere, like go to a restaurant or go to friends, you have to put that cane somewhere.
Right.
But they are different types.
Right.
And I mean, there's a whole lot of different variation and styles of cane, different types of collapsible canes, different kind of cane tips, because those give you different amount of information for different terrains.
Right.
So there really is there's quite a variety of different canes.
And this is my feeling. I feel that for the blind female or a woman, it's easier to have a collapsible cane because you carry a handbag with you.
I guess.
I guess when you're going out when you go somewhere with your husband, you don't really need a cane at that point, do you? Or do you still
I
use
usually
it?
take it. I still take it with me because, for one thing, if I need to do something and my husband is not with me, then it gives me the independence. Even if we're out together, he goes off somewhere, he goes to do something, or and also it's a really good indication to other people that I am blind and I might not react as they expect me to. So if someone is coming towards me and I don't have my cane with me, they don't know that I can't see them approaching. Sure, I can probably hear them approaching, but it does mean that if it's easier for me to move to get out the way, then my cane at least tells them that I might not.
Right. So,
And that they're the ones who might need to adjust the way they're walking. So it really, for me, I do take it even when I'm with Craig, because we're the sighted person, because of that. It gives me more information. It doesn't make me dependent on them. They're just giving me direction. Everything else I do with my cane. And as I say, because there are other people in the environment, and they will then see that I am blind and might react differently.
right. Instead of one example could be, excuse me, if they need you to move out of the way or something.
So often people actually don't do that anyway. They just brush past me and bump me, and that's, people are not always very observant, unfortunately.
No, people are not. I've been in stores where I got bumped because people just don't realize. They just pass by you like they're their world.
Or people are on their phones, or staring at a screen, or thinking about something else, and so as a species we are not the most observant.
Let me ask you this: when you talk about a phone, I know you use a screen reader. Do you use a screen reader on your phone?
Yeah, I do. I've got text to speech on both my laptop and on my phone.
Do you use this is a question again, I know. Do you use an Apple computer or some other device?
I'm using a Windows laptop, but my phone is an Apple phone.
I'm surprised you're not in the full Apple system, because I learned that real quick.
I have been using a laptop computer for a lot longer than I've been using a mobile phone. So I was already familiar with using the Windows system, using the screen reader, and I knew all the commands, and I knew how to navigate and do all the things that I needed to do.
Right.
And then when I first got an iPhone, it was a big learning curve. It was a big adjustment to go from a flat screen, from a keyboard-based system to a flat screen system with icons and things like that. That was when I first got a smartphone.
Right.
But I'm so used to having the two different systems, and it also does give me a little more flexibility, because I find that some things work better on one system and some things work better on the other system.
I'll tell you a quick story on that. I'm a member of the Red Cross, right? Something wasn't working on Safari, which is the Apple
Yeah.
which is a native thing.
The browser.
The browser. It wasn't working correctly. What my friend found as an instructor, he found the problem was that I needed to use the same website but through Chrome.
Okay. And Chrome is easier through a Windows machine.
I did not know that. I did not know that I had to do that. Just
Yeah.
I had no sense of that. I had no sense of knowing. Oh God. So yeah, I was trying to, and now, because I've been ill for about a week or so. When I get over this, then I'm gonna go back into computer training.
Yeah.
Which I prefer one-on-one training because of my dyslexia, but this one is not
Yes.
classroom training, so I have to go into a virtual environment and just deal with this.
Yeah.
What do you prefer? Teaching yourself, learning from people, or learning from a virtual?
I'm happy with both. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love learning things, and then some things will work better for me learning direct from an individual person or in a classroom environment. Some I like learning online. Some I like researching myself and doing it that way. So it really depends on what it is that I'm particularly looking to do.
I went to school and I graduated school in 1992.
Yeah.
High school where ADA was not a thing.
Yes, because it came out in 1992, didn't it? So it started then.
Right, but when I graduated high school, it was not a thing.
Yeah.
So that stopped me from doing something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It stopped me from I wanted to become a radio DJ, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
But it stopped me because I had to go to college, right?
Yeah.
And going to college as a disabled person at that point, I felt it was unsurmountable.
Yes. Yeah, and I think also the technology has changed
Yes.
so much that, what is possible now
Right.
is a lot easier. I mean, I was chatting to someone earlier today who is a blind radio DJ who runs a radio station here in South Africa. And all of his DJs are blind. No, not all of them are blind, but all of them are people with disabilities. And I love that. I love that, so much is possible for us that even 5-10 years ago, the technology made less possible.
It is possible. It is possible to become a DJ it is even possible. Because I explored it, and it is possible. It is even possible to become a party DJ as a disabled person.
Sure.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? How that would be?
Yeah, I know of a couple of people who are doing that, who are mixing music at parties and things like that.
The only accommodation there, it would be having to get there, right?
Yeah.
And teaching someone else how to set up your gear.
Yeah. Oh, well, even that, you can do that if you learn how.
Yeah. What I would have had to do is because I actually explored this. I would have had to make. I even had my dad make a console table. You know what a console table is?
Yes.
Where you put this thing on?
Yeah. Where you put your what are they called now? The
mixer.
Turntables.
The mixer.
And the mixer and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. You put that down at a low. You take a desk chair, and at that height, that's where you build it. And once you sit there and everything is set up, you can just go to work.
Sure.
Actually, just to tell you, the reason I'm using the Shure SM58 is because I bought 2 of them for that project.
Okay.
So I had them sitting there. I said, let me not, That's why I ended up with this professional microphone,
Yeah.
Because
I also am a a Shure 58, SM58 user.
Right.
And I bought mine when I started doing vocals live on stage as a singer. So we all come to our tools in different ways.
Do you still do vocals, or you're not doing those anymore?
I do some. I have music that's out on Spotify and all the various streaming services. My band is available on those. That was a lot of fun, but I don't actually have much time to play music nowadays because I've just got so much else that's going on with my books and my speaking and my coaching and everything else that's going on, that I don't really get much time to play music. So yeah, it's last time I did a gig was in May. So it was a couple of months back already.
So I'm thinking, so when I started my podcast, I said, well, how am I going to do this? And I remember I had this gear, this microphone stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I bought a microphone around it. But I bought recorder around it. And I also bought a purpose computer, if you know what I mean by a purpose computer.
Yes.
I bought this computer specifically for this piece.
Yeah.
Because this computer, this computer, I don't have drivers for. You see why I had to do that?
Yeah.
I bought this because it was easier for me just to plug and play with it.
Yes.
So what time is it in your country? So I don't keep too much of your time. Sorry, I don't want to do that.
It is currently heading towards 5 p.m. 5 in the evening. So it's coming up to dog supper time and human supper time.
Right. Do you need to go? We can cut this short.
I do need to go quite soon.
Right. No. That's why I'm.
But yeah, I'm also I'm realizing with my diabetes, my sugar levels have dropped a bit.
Right. No.
So I'm just having some sugar in the meantime while we're chatting.
But I'm aware of that, because I know the time zone difference.
Yes.
Because I have a world clock here telling me, hey, it's 11 o'clock my time. It's 11:16. So that's.
Gosh.
Yes, gosh.
Time flies when we're having fun.
But it's interesting how when I started my podcast, I started completely as a solo on a tablet.
Yeah.
That was something. I go back to the episodes now and I cringe.
It's like anything in life. You got to start somewhere.
Right.
And have that as a benchmark.
Right.
And then you start to improve.
Right.
And in fact, most podcasters I know will say, I hate listening to my early episodes because they were just so bad. It's a bit like writing. Your first draft of a book is almost guaranteed that it will be terrible. But you've got to have somewhere that you start from so that you can then get better.
Right. And right.
Yeah.
So what I did, I started during COVID because I was bored. All my volunteer opportunities were closed. So I'm a member of the Red Cross.
Yeah.
So that was closed. I was doing exams. That was closed for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then I decided I'm gonna throw a mask on and I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go out there and help my buddies.
Yeah.
Because they need 3 of us. If there are not 3 of us in the field or in the test session, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not authorized. You have to have 3. So he would come pick me up and what have you. One day I got stuck. I'll tell you, I got stuck. No, what happened was we didn't realize it. He was driving. He drives a huge big truck. I can get into the truck with his help if I have a walker.
Okay.
I can't go from a seated position up to this truck. That's not. It's possible, but it's not practical. right?
Okay.
So when I got stuck and we figured it out, but I said I gotta figure this out. I actually gave my buddy an old walker of mine. He has it in his garage, right? If I am going to the place where he's not driving me to, I'll simply send him a text message. Remember to bring the walker. Throw the walker in the truck.
Oh, fantastic.
So that way I resolved that.
Yeah.
Because being that I am more able than others, I am not confined to the chair.
Yes.
The chair for me is a tool.
Well, I don't like that term confined to a wheelchair because
Right.
I know a lot of people feel that it's not something that is a symbol of confinement. It's a symbol of liberation.
Right.
So I tend to avoid using that as a term.
Right.
I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Okay. I have cerebral palsy.
Yeah?
Okay. I walk around with a walker. That's why you sometimes hear the noise that it rattled.
Yes.
So, because I affectionately tap it, so in the home, I don't use a wheelchair.
Yes.
Most restaurants, I don't use a wheelchair in either.
Yes.
Because they say they're accessible, but they're not.
Often they don't understand what the term really means. Yeah. And what's accessible for one person is not accessible for someone else.
No, and then you see I have all these tables and this barrier and all this.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
So when I can, and I use it and I walk into the restaurant, I may want them to seat me a little closer to the door than normal people, but or sometimes I just do it.
Yeah.
There's one thing. There's one time where because there was no room, right? I went to a restaurant on a Saturday. I think it was a Sunday. It was a French restaurant, so Mondays are not open, right?
Okay.
So we went there, and the thing was so crowded that my buddy and I ended up by a stage with lights.
Oh. Okay.
Not nice. You know why I say not nice?
Well, if they were in your visual field,
Yeah.
they're going to impact on what you can and cannot see because,
These flashing things, you know?
yeah. And if you're epileptic, that can trigger an epileptic seizure.
Right.
So, you know,
Luckily I'm
there
not.
can be all sorts of things why that's not a good idea.
Luckily I'm not, but I'm like, oh God. You know? But it still was annoying because you're like, oh, lights.
Yes, for sure.
I enjoy my meal, but I enjoy lights. You know, that happens.
Oh, well.
So it's interesting.
Yes.
As a matter of, so I have had to, I'm gonna end on this. I have had to help the Red Cross go through disability issues. Talk to me on that a little bit. Because they were having so many problems, they were having so many issues that I'm like, so I called up the manager, I called up one of their version of HR, our local HR, and I go, this is a problem. I've never met her before. I talked to her on the phone a few times.
Yeah.
I saw her walking around, you know, whatever, but I never actually talked to her. I called her and I said, this is a problem. And I go, because you can actually, in an organization like that, you can take a lawyer and take action there. But I decided I'm not doing that. I'm going to. And so I said, this is going on, I'm going to help you. I sat in a meeting with this woman that I never met for an hour.
Gosh.
And then we went up and we met somebody else. People that I know in there were surprised. Were like, how do you get an hour with this person? I said, because there's a huge amount of problem.
Yes.
There's a lot of disabled people. I don't know how you feel that they have to do something by themselves. that they don't like help.
Yeah.
I don't.
A lot
I
of
don't.
people do believe that.
I don't agree with that. There's a reason we find that. As long as I can get to do what I need to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as I can go past that door or do what I need to do, right? I'll give you a prime example. I got stuck behind the door at the Red Cross behind the door because the spring was wrong, the wrong balance. Somebody realized it and they helped me, right?
Yeah.
I told that lady, I said, lady, this is wrong. The door is a problem, right? The door is a problem. And then she tells me, oh yeah, but it's going to take time to fix it, right? I go, okay, I understand that. So I came up with a solution so that
Yeah.
the person that was at the greeter at the desk would get up and take the person upstairs, you see?
Yeah.
Take the person upstairs so that they could open the door for them.
Yes.
So you see how I didn't only tell them there was a problem, but what did I come up with? A solution.
Find a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, for me, I like to do things for myself if I can.
Right.
But I'm not going to beat myself up if I can't do something.
Right. Or
I'm totally okay with asking for help
right.
and advocating for my needs.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know, and I know fundamentally, that the fact that I occasionally need help has nothing to do with the fact that I am disabled.
Right. Oh,
I have a disability.
I forgot a story
Because-
that I told you in the past. But go ahead and finish that, and I'll tell you the story.
Everybody asks for help at some stage. And I think that it almost, for me, is sad that we as a community feel that pressurized not to ask for help when we need it because we feel we need to prove that we are independent.
No.
And, you know, the ability to ask for help, if it's going to make our lives easier, if it's going to save us time,
Yeah.
I do personally, I'm totally okay with that.
As I said before, I'm a volunteer examiner for amateur radio.
Yeah,
You know where this is going.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you know.
But remind me.
Yeah. So one day I was helping a person on the phone with her exam, and she says to me, she calls me in a panic, right?
Yeah,
And says to me, "Oh, we may not have the exam." I go, as an examiner, I know there's a couple reasons why, and most of the time it's
yeah,
personnel.
yeah,
So I'm like, I said, why? Because so-and-so said that there's not enough people, right?
Yeah.
I said, I thought for half a second, and I said, give me a day. I asked her who the guy was, right?
yeah,
He mentioned my name, the same guy as the Red Cross guy. So I'm like, his name. So I go, okay, give me a day. Let him know. Let him know. But let him know that I'm working on it. Give me a day, right?
all right,
So I call up my other buddy, the one that I went to the restaurant to with the lights.
yeah,
So okay, and I go, and I call him, and I ask him a question, and I say, "Are you going to so and such a place?" He goes, before me asking him, telling him that I need help getting there, he says, "Do you need to go?"
yeah,
Out of the blue, he said, "I'm like, yes, I do." He says, "I have to be there at 1 o'clock, at noon, the latest, because I think it has lunch at noon, so you know."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I like to be there an hour before because you know what I mean? No
Yes.
rushing around. So he says, "Oh, but I have to be there at 9 o'clock." I'm like, okay. So what did I have to do? I had to get up in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning
yeah, to get there.
to get there at 9, even though I had to be there at 1.
So I think life often does come down to understanding that if people offer us help, they also have lives.
Right.
And we need to decide whether what they can manage will work for us, or if we need to find an alternative solution. And that comes down to a balance of priorities of what we feel is right.
No, and
But,
with me, it's not, a lot of times when I ask like that, is because I prefer to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, there you are. That's a choice.
Because
Which is great.
Because using special transportation can be difficult when you need to be there at a
Yes.
specific time.
Yes.
You can never guarantee, because they have a 30-minute window to get to you.
Yeah.
If they decide to use that whole 30-minute window, what happens to you?
Yeah, for sure.
You can be late.
Yeah.
And I cannot do that. I cannot do that if I am...
Not when other people are depending on you.
No.
You're right.
No, I cannot do that. I have to... So you see why that comes into play a lot? Where they go, oh, where it's not a choice, where it's like, I have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At this point, I want to thank you for your time a second time, because it was something that happened. And I'm going to run my outro, and then I'm going to end the recording. It's nice talking to you again.
Well, thanks so much. It's been really great to chat, Leonard.
I am. Oh. Thank you for listening to my episodes. My episodes will come out Monday and Wednesday. You can listen to me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and many others, including iHeartRadio. The reason I've done this podcast is to give people a voice, because I think that the disabled community is missing a voice, but I am in a unique position of being able to afford minimal equipment to do this. I'm going to give you my email address. If you want to contact me, is ke4key@gmail.com. And I will also, you can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, at The Disabled Guy, and a few other places where I put my episodes out on Facebook too. With that, thank you for listening.